So, it's great to be with you for the start of the second Wingfield Sculls race this afternoon. Lola Anderson won the women's event in very commanding form, and now coming under Putney Bridge, we see the men's race and the Scullers just drifting under Putney Bridge. And we have on the Surrey station, that's as the left as we look at it, Nathan O'Reilly from London Rowing Club, Ray Zhu from London Rowing Club, also Jack Keating from Leander Club, Graham Thomas, the favourite to take this race, Diamond Sculls champion from Leander Club, Callum Dixon from Twickenham Rowing Club. I think that was Callum we were looking at just there. And on the Middlesex station on the far side, Gregor Maxwell. And Fergus, the Scullers are racing against the stream, we've heard.
Yeah, it's a pretty crushing blow, I imagine, if you're lining up and all of a sudden you hear you're going to be against the stream for 6.8 kilometers from Putney to Chiswick Bridge. But it just adds to the element of racing the Wingfields. That old saying, you never quite know what's going to happen on the tideway, and that's certainly something that they perhaps weren't expecting when they boated, because I think it's a pretty recent bit of news to us, so I imagine it's pretty recent to them as well. But for those of you who are with us for the women's race, you'll have seen just how challenging, just how tough some of those conditions were. We're hearing from Lola Anderson, the winner, and from Georgie Brayshaw as well, that they fairly got battered around, particularly in the first section from Putney Embankment up to Hammersmith Bridge and Crossy. I'm sure we'll be seeing something similar again in this men's race.
Yeah, conditions, of course, are not as rough because you've got wind with stream. But I just wonder if on the Middlesex station, Callum Dixon and Gregor Maxwell are going to be really pleased around that first Middlesex bend that they've got an inside draw. They're going to have to cross over to the other side. Looking that might be Nathan O'Reilly over there. Going back to Rijou, Jack Keating. And then we should get Graham Thomas in the red of Agecroft. As the camera pans round. 3 London Rowing Club Scullers in this race. There's Graham Thomas. And next to him, Callum Dixon. Sort of yellow alpaca and the blue and white top. And then right on the outside is another of London Rowing Club Scullers, Gregor Maxwell, right on the Middlesex bank. And the Scullers have started. It looks like the umpire, Graham Mulcahy, has taken the flag, and we have got the data to give you. You can see on the top right of the screen, we have got pulse rate data, we've got speed data, we've got all the things that you want if you were looking at the race.
Tell you what, though, Cross, this is a fascinating decision from Callum Dixon. Either he's tapping out of this year's Wingfield.
Oh, someone's caught a crab there.
Callum Dixon, yeah, I think he's opting to tuck right over to the other side of the bank, get himself out of the course. I think we're seeing something similar from Nathan O'Reilly as well. Ray Zhu there on screen, but straight away we're getting all sorts of tactics coming into this one.
That is sensational. And I suppose the fastest sculler at the moment is Graham Thomas on the GPS data, 2:14, 2:15 meter, minutes per 500 meter. And that is pretty similar to Gregor Maxwell and Jack Keating. And Callum Dixon yet to really get in the mix. But you were saying there, I've never seen steering like that at the start of a race. They just dive for the bank. That was really quite sensational, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think just looking at the GPS data that we've got a split. We've got Callum Dixon, we've got Nathan O'Reilly over on the Surrey side of the station. So just cruising up the side of the Putney Embankment clubs, and then we've got the other 4 Scullers. We've got Graham Thomas, Gregor Maxwell, Ray Zhu, and Jack Keating all over on the Middlesex bend. So I think an interesting decision, because they're obviously going to have the first sort of bend advantage before the big swing round to Hammersmith that Nathan and Callum will have if they're still in the race at that point. But I would say the advantage is very much with that group of 4 Scullers on the Middlesex bend at the moment.
Yeah, Graham Thomas right close in. You can see him out in front, the red top, distinctive colours of Agecroft, the white blades. Behind him, the Leander Club sculler, Jack Keating, the young Irish sculler now rowing at Leander Club, just about 2 or 3 lengths behind. And there seems to be quite a distance between some of the scullers that are now close in on that Surrey bank. I'm not sure quite who that was. That might have been Nathan O'Reilly or Ray Zhu. Jack Keating's out on the other side. And was that Callum Dixon from Twickenham on the Surrey bank as well, Fergus?
Yeah, I think Nathan and Callum have opted for Surrey, and the other four they've gone for the flip side, are cruising down Middlesex at the moment. But I think just looking at some of that split data at the moment, I think it's looking pretty even at the moment, I would say, across the board. We see some of the numbers flickering all over the place. We can see Graham Thomas, as you've mentioned already, out in front, going with them. Jack Keating of Leander Club, obviously the medalist at the under-23 Euros in the double sculls. He won that one earlier this year, so he's hopefully going to be in fine form coming into this one. But just that fascinating split off the start, and we saw Callum Dixon straight away right in front of the umpire's launch, which at one point I thought we were going to collide into him.
Yeah, it's such a massive bend that that goes round by Fulham Football Club that to actually go around the outside of that bend. There's Graham Thomas that I'm looking at, just checking over his right shoulder. Keeping in as close as he can to that bend. Jack Keating behind him. And the two London Rowing Club scullers, I think Rijou and not quite sure which one is which. I have to be honest with you at the moment for the London Rowing Club scullers. But Graham Thomas out in front, and just to give you our extra special Ludum inspired performance data show he's pulling 2 minutes 30. His split is shown at the moment, 167 beats per minute. And at the moment, Callum Dixon is moving the quickest of all the scullers, and he's on the inside on the Surrey bank, so we can't quite see where he will be at the moment.
I think as the GPS pops up there on screen for everyone to see, we're noticing that group of 4 scullers who initially hugged that Middlesex bend just drifting out into the middle of a bit more, because obviously they'll be trying to shift over to take that bend advantage that obviously Nathan and Callum will have. But I'm amazed actually that Callum and Nathan didn't drop further off the back. Full credit to them. They've dug in there and very much in the mix with Ray Zhu, with Gregor Maxwell as well. So I think 4 scullers very much in the mix for that 3rd through 6th position. As we can see, Graham Thomas, he's got clear water over Jack Keating, and I think Jack Keating has clear water over the rest of the field. But this next section and this next bend, sort of round from here through to Harry's Depository, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how these scullers line up to take the bend.
It will be really interesting. And the scullers are now moving across. We've got Graham Thomas from Agecroft out there in front. There's one of the scullers, I think that's Jack Keating, rated to 27.26. And then in 3rd place at the moment, we have Ray Zhu. And just on the outside of Ray Zhu, coming round rate 31, is Gregor Maxwell. So that I'm not sure if that tactics work then for those scullers on the near side. What do you think, Fergus?
Well, I think particularly for those London Rowing Club scullers, they're only going to know if it works between the 3 of them. They'll know in training who's perhaps going the quickest out of the 3 of them. So perhaps with Nathan, it was a move he planned to keep himself in the mix, or perhaps from the other 2, it was to keep themselves in the mix with Nathan. That's maybe one for the questions with Adam afterwards, just to see.
Graham
if you're
Thomas.
expecting to have them this close together at this stage. But I think one thing I was going to say, one thing there's no surprise at the moment is seeing Graham Thomas so far ahead of the rest of the field, similar to Lola in the women's race earlier.
Yeah, he did look great out there. I really like the front end of his stroke. He really prides himself on the sort of the ease with which he puts the blades in and the speed of front end connection. And I guess Graham Thomas is probably the fastest British sculler at the moment, and keen. He had been very keen to do the single scull in Tokyo. He asked Jürgen Grobler, and Grobler said no, but he thought Tokyo was a course that suited him, rough conditions, windy, and he's a sculler that can spin the rating up and get his blades off the water. It's just the other thing about Graham Thomas was the first time he was on the tideway in a single scull, Fergus, was this week. I was kind of amazed at that.
Unbelievable.
So he's got Henry Fieldman and Josh Butler in the launch behind him steering. But they say, well, we get you to Hammersmith Bridge because probably by then you're going to be too far ahead.
I was going to say, actually, of all the people you want in your launch, probably Henry and Josh are the two you'd want in your corner just to help get you around this first section of the course.
There's the Twickenham Rowing Club sculler, Callum Dixon, who was stroking the quad that finished second in the Prince of Wales, behind Jack Keating, who was bowing the winning Leander quad. But Callum Dixon, who took that circuitous path around the outside of the Surrey Bend, is now trucking. He looks really strong, doesn't he? And it now looks like he's overtaking Jack Keating.
He's looking really good, really, really good. And I think, as you said, that decision's absolutely paid off. He's right up in the mix for that second place. And I think questions are now going to start to be asked of Jack Keating as to whether or not he can dig in for the next 10 minutes, I suppose, and have a really good tussle between now and Barnes Bridge. But we can see there, it's, as we've mentioned, Graham Thomas out in front. That race was second, third, Callum Dixon, Jack Keating. And then of the London Rowing Club scullers, it looks to be Ray Zhu getting the better of Gregor Maxwell, of Nathan O'Reilly in that fifth and sixth place at the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it, just to see the splits on screen that we're getting from the Ludum data. And Callum Dixon down at 2:23 per 500, Graham Thomas at 2:39. So Callum Dixon is moving back on Graham Thomas. Callum Dixon's pulse, he's putting a lot of effort in. He's up at 186, 187. Graham Thomas is still, I guess, cruising at 170 beats per minute. Gregor Maxwell up. You can see his pulse up 193, but Graham Thomas still looks within himself that Callum Dixon is showing better numbers at the moment than Graham Thomas.
Yeah, certainly one to keep an eye on over the next, I imagine, a minute or two, because he's sitting about 12, 13 splits or so lower than Graham Thomas at the moment. We just see it flickering on the screen at the moment. So if he digs in and has a really solid next 60 seconds, 2 minutes or so, it could prove to be a pretty decisive step on. But that race between him and Jack Keating is going to be very interesting to see how Graham's able to control the race from out in front and manage that accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've still got quite a bit of this race left. Not going to say that Graham Thomas is going to lose anytime soon, because he's got a lead over Jack Keating, but Callum Dixon, of Twickenham Rowing Club is up there. Do you have a GPS data on Callum Dixon, Fergus?
To be honest, I think, as we've said, he's moving well. He's sitting at about 186 beats per minute at the moment. He's cruising at about 30, 31 strokes a minute. And just looking at the data at the moment, I think Graham Thomas is responding to that move that we've seen from Callum Dixon, and is now once again the quickest moving athlete on the course. But Graham Thomas, he's sitting slightly further out in the course than the rest of them. Callum Dixon, Jack Keating still hugging the inside of this bend. So I guess geographically they hold the advantage around the bend. But it's Graham Thomas who's still the fastest moving boat at the moment. But I think the gap, Crossy, I don't know how it looks to you, but I think the gap is certainly closing between Graham and the rest of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I'd have thought Graham Thomas, rather like Lola Anderson, would really, with his pedigree, would just take the race and scull away. He has been in training, really, not the sort of level of Olympic training, but since the Olympic Games, he's been doing kind of a session a day. He raced in the Agecroft Head just last weekend, which he won, and he was trucking over that course at about 1 minute 50 per 500 meters, he told me. So he is in good shape, doing a lot of UT2 work.
Yeah, Callum Dixon's moving really well up that inside line at the moment. His race that he had with Jack Keating, the two of them still battling out. They're just drawing closer and closer at the moment to Graham Thomas, and we're seeing it's split down very much into two races. We've got London Rowing Club their battle at the moment, and that race out front between Callum, Jack, and Graham. So I think what's going to be pivotal is once we get round past Chiswick, how they then position themselves up in the lead up to the bandstand to take that bend at Barnes Bridge, I think is going to be really decisive. If they're all still in this mix of the three of them so close together, I think steering and tactics are going to be vital.
Yeah, completely. And at some point, they're going to have to go over the crossing, aren't they, once they get round Chiswick, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the scullers, when they decide to cross, when they decide to avoid the boys. It's something Graham Thomas could do with steering support on, because he doesn't know the tideway that well. So,
no, as you said, he'll have had some sort of a briefing from Josh and from Henry on it, but with him being so far out in front, I guess ahead of the launches at the moment, it'll make it very difficult. For him to make that judgment, and perhaps it's something that he'll have to rely on the other scullers on the field and then just react to as and when they move.
I think you're right. So Graham Thomas has kind of, his 500 metre speed at 2:19.7 is now significantly quicker than Callum Dixon's at 2:33. So Graham Thomas looks to have that in control. Gregor Maxwell's having a little push, the Scot from London Rowing Club. It's up 192 beats per minute. And Riju there, 2:11, 2:12, just trying to push as they all, you can see on that map how close they are in on that Surrey bank. Graham Thomas out in front, Callum Dixon behind him. Graham Thomas at 28 did talk about what rate that he would be going over at, and the man from northwest of England, from Agecrofts, thought he might go over at 32-ish. That's what he went over when he won the Agecroft Head at the weekend, but he's down at 29, so our data's telling us 3.8 meters per second, heart rate 174. He thinks his maximum is something like, high 180s plus.
Well, I think if the race continues to play out at the moment, I think we could see that heart rate rocket up towards the end of the race as we continue to see pressure coming from Callum Dixon, from Jack Keating as well. I think despite sitting in third place, I'd say he's not out of that race for second place at the moment. He's still moving faster than Callum Dixon is, and we can just see tracking him at the moment. Ray Zhu as well, not too far behind. So Ray Zhu, the quickest moving of those London Rowing Club scullers at the moment as we get to the end of Chiswick 8. But Graham Thomas, yeah, as you said, 176 on the heart rate. He's got gears to go through.
Yeah.
He's got gears to go through if it gets down to it after Barnes Bridge, a sprint towards the finish line.
Well, having said that, he's up at 31. He was 32 strokes a minute. I think he's just having a bit of a 10 coming up to a 10-stroke effort coming up past Chiswick Steps. Maybe he's seen Callum Dixon is there and just closing the door. Callum Dixon tracking Graham Thomas in second place is the threat, but I think Graham Thomas has got every weapon in his armoury to deal with the threat of Callum Dixon.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. But I think one that we've been tracking for a little bit now is Ray Zhu, and he continues to keep moving up on the likes of Jack Keating. I think the two of them from the GPS at the moment, it very much looks like it's pretty much stroke for stroke with Ray Zhu currently the faster moving of the two of them. And I would say from the GPS, it's looking very, very tight between the two of them. And again, it comes down to this question of, well, who's going to take the crossover line better than the other one? And I'd actually put my money on Ray Zhu having the better crossover, just with his local knowledge. Rowing out of London Rowing Club, I think, is going to give him the advantage over the course of the next couple of minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating to see those lines as they do go to crossover, because normally if you're sculling up to the start of the or rowing up to the start of the head of the river race, you would take this course well into the bank, and then you would cross over around about the place that Graham Thomas is now. The bend will unwind. He'd probably be looking to Henry Fieldman and Josh Butler, who are steering him for a little bit of advice. They won't be too far out of sight, I don't think, at the moment, so he probably will be able to see, but they're going to have to make a call when to ask him to move over.
That's it. I think Ray Zhu's gone. And I think Graham Thomas has seen him make that move, and Graham Thomas is now heading over. Jack Keating's heading over. And almost immediately after Ray Zhu's head over, we're seeing the likes of Nathan O'Reilly's going. Gregor Maxwell's going. The only one who's sticking to that Surrey bend is Callum Dixon of Twickenham Rowing Club. So you do wonder, what does Callum Dixon know that the rest of them haven't figured out yet? But I think that's fascinating. 5 have gone, but Callum Dixon braving it on the Surrey bend.
Yeah, well, of course, Graham Thomas, relatively will slow down in relation to Callum Dixon as he does move out. And his rate's 28, 29, about the same as Callum Dixon, who's rating 29. Boat speed of Callum Dixon at the moment is 205, 204. Graham Thomas is 210. So Callum Dixon at the moment, because he's out of the stream, is of course making up distance on Graham Thomas, which I guess does all add up to the fascination of the race. Those two scullers moving away from Jack Keating behind them. When do you think Callum Dixon's going to cross over? Do you think he's going to stay on? He can't stay on that bank the whole way round, can he?
I was going to, he'd be foolish to stay on that bank the whole way round, because it will give him such a disadvantage as and when they hit Barnes Bridge in the final surge round. So you'd expect his move to come in the next couple of 100 metres or so, given that, well, Barnes Bridge isn't that far away. They're probably coming quite close into Barnes. Are probably, I think, as you said, a couple of 100 metres or so away from it. So you'd expect him to go, but it's just a waiting game now to see how long he sticks out on that Middlesex bank, on Surrey bank, sorry.
Well, he's equalised his pace with Jack Keating, but I think, Callum Dixon has left it so long because, the bank, the curve is now coming round as they pass the bandstand at Duke's Meadows. The curve is now coming round, and the advantage is very much with those on the Middlesex bank. So Callum Dixon right over there on Surrey, he kind of wants to get out and get over and get that crossing done as quickly as possible, because the possibility is that Jack Keating could well find that when Callum Dixon comes out into the stream to make the crossover, that Jack Keating gets the second place in this race by virtue of Callum Dixon slowing down as he makes the crossing.
Massively, and I think you're also going to see the Reju creep up into contention for that third place as well if Callum Dixon continues to delay it, because you wonder, he's almost getting to the stage of, well, yeah, do I actually cross before Barnes, or do I just wait now, or if he's just going to hug the bend the entire way round.
That's a really fascinating decisions being made out there on the water. We're bringing you this Wingfield Sculls, the British Amateur Championship of the Thames, and whoever wins this race, it will be a new champion crowned. It does very much look like Graham Thomas, as he's coming up to Barnes Bridge, is in pole position. Callum Dixon in second place. I think he's probably losing out a bit to Jack Keating now. But Graham Thomas will shoot the inside arch of Barnes Bridge. Very much in the lead. He's led from very early on in this race, Graham Thomas. And through Barnes Bridge he goes. Stroke rate's up at 30. Do you think he's having a little push off the bridge, Fergus?
Oh, it's never a bad thing to have a push off the bridge. It's always a good one to kick off and try and push on before your opposition hit it. But it's also a really good indicator. It lines you up very well, and I think it's a really good indicator that it's the last bit of this race. It's round from here through to Scullers, the finish line of the championship course just before Chiswick Bridge. So I imagine, he'll have stepped on.
Look at the cross over there. Callum Dixon is just crossing over, and he's just right coming through Barnes Bridge, and he's ended up going through Barnes Bridge behind Jack Keating of Leander and level with Reju of London Rowing Club, and he did have a lead over Jack Keating, and that's got to call into question his tactics there, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as you said, we'll see Graham Thomas kick on now, just to shut the door very much on the rest of the competition. But I think this drag race is going to come right down to the end. I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner between these three scullers, with Jack Keating, with Callum Dixon, with Reju as well. It really is going to be the question of who fancies it. And I think Reju is an established lightweight sculler over at his time at University of Toronto in Canada. He's got a 6:02. For the 2K PB as well, so it's time for him to light up the course now, and time to see that come into the mix. And I think he's going to give Callum Dixon a really good run for his money, as he will for Jack Keating as well.
Yeah, Reju, I saw that watts per kilo average of 554 watts per kilo for the 2K test, which is a pretty decent average in terms of a man of his weight who can pull those scores on the ergo. And Callum Dixon is, a monster on the erg, but he's back there in fourth place after having held second place. Out in front, as he comes round that Middlesex bend, past the Dukes Meadows Fields, is the man from Agecroft Rowing Club, Graham Thomas. Speeds now 3.8 metres a second. His heart rate is just heading up towards 180, it's 179. He sprints in for the line. We might see it at 180. I think his max is going to be around high 180s, 188 or something like that.
Do you know what? I would love to get that heart rate data for Reju at the moment. I think he is just absolutely gunning for it in this last stretch round to Tideway Sculls. It looks like he's fairly dispatched off Callum Dixon out the back, and I think it's now a two-horse race between himself and Jack Keating, the Leander sculler, for that second place position. I think, Callum Dixon, I think he misjudged that bend coming around to Barnes. I think it's cost him. I think that extra distance that the road will have cost him. And we can see now, I think, looking at the tracker, Reju is just creeping up into that second place, Martin.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? What a push from the London lightweights. Finished 5th in the Sculler's Head. Recent Sculler's Head. But Graham Thomas can look back on all of that. Jack Keating's in 3rd place now, the Leander Club Sculler. The Irishman learnt to row at Carlow Rowing Club, which is where, of course, the great Sean Dray was from. But nothing's going to interrupt the progress of Graham Thomas, as he will now feel that familiar landscape. He has rowed in the Force Head a couple of times, which starts from Chiswick Bridge, which he's approaching now, the 32-year-old. And it is Reju. Jack Keating's putting in a little bit of a push. I think the Twickenham Rowing Club sculler Callum Dixon is going to have to settle for 4th place. What can Jack Keating do in the push for the line?
I think you also wonder how much can Gregor Maxwell claw back. He's been eating at Callum Dixon's heels for the past couple of 100 meters or so now. I think there can be no more than a length of clear water separating the two of them. The former Edinburgh University lightweight still attacking as we come into the dying stages of this. But it is Graham Thomas well out in front and has been from the beginning of this race, Martin.
Yeah, coming up to the university finish, the university boat race finish, the end of the championship course, just by the Tideway Scullers Club. And Graham Thomas comes up, the man from Agecroft, 4th place in this year's Olympics with John Collins, crosses the line. And he can start to take a breather. Who's that in 2nd place? I think that is Reju, just ahead of Jack Keating. Did you get that, Fergus?
Whatever it was, I think it was close. I think it was a very, very close race between them. I would say I think it was just Reju, but we might need to defer to our man at the finish, Adam Freeman-Pask, for that official one. And then, yeah, another blinder of finish from Callum Dixon. I think just holding on to that position over Gregor Maxwell of London Rowing Club.
And Nathan O'Reilly, former Newcastle University Boat Club oarsman, now with London Rowing Club. Another Irishman, famously broke those ergometer records within a week, those lightweight in the category 30 to 39. He was coming in 6th place. Great to see a full field in this race. And well, we enjoyed looking at those races and the tactics of the scullers as they crossed from one side to the other, racing.
Yeah, it was a fascinating race. I think we're all expecting from the start Graham to come out and I think walk away with it. And I think to give the other scullers credit to him, I think he didn't. I think he was pushed, particularly in the first part of that, for the majority of it. And then we saw sort of the tussle starting to come from Jack and from Callum as well as they rounded the top of Hammersmith. And again, the lines in this, now that we had the barrier being closed, it changed everything. It changed the entire dynamic of the race, what with everyone trying to get the shortest line around all the bends.
I bet he's never had an experience like that at Caversham, Graham Thomas. To me, the tactics of going close on Middlesex, and Callum Dixon, you know, I don't know what his steerer told him, but he was on the Middlesex bank. He was drawn on the Middlesex bank with Gregor Maxwell. For him to cross right over to Surrey, it's got to be questionable tactics off the start.
Yeah, I just remember seeing that footage.
There. Talk me about your strategy.
Thank you. Well, I just listen to what the steerers tell you. And we thought getting in with the clearer water might help. Which I think it did.
So you thought taking a sort of 90-degree turn to the bank was the way to do it?
Yes.
Impressive stuff. Well done. Great racing. Good finish there as well. Really strong.
So if anyone wants to lift back in,
Over there.
Yeah.
To Sculls. Yeah.
if we're going to disembark, we're going to disembark from the launches.
So hopefully we'll get a few words from Ray here, who finished second. So it's an impressive result for him, taking down some pretty big scalps. One of his sort of main results recently was fourth at the Sculler's Head. So new to sculling, having switched from triathlon, he's really found his form in the sculling boat here, and he's really given a bit of a masterclass in how to steer the tideway. He's just going to boat in, and hopefully we'll get a few words from him. How you doing, Ray? How was your race?
That's my kind of race, the long ones.
The long ones, hey?
I don't have the brute strength of those guys, but I have some endurance.
And some good tactics there as well. Impressive steering.
That was lucky.
Where do you think you really got them? You know, where was some decisive points that you saw?
Barnes Bridge.
Barnes Bridge.
I think it was either Callum or the Pickenham thrower. I can't remember his name right now. Word of it. Went wide, and then I beat him. He tried to get around me to get the inside track, but I held him off, and that was it.
We lost some of our race feed through the middle of the race, but Sam Mayer was following some of the feed from the umpires launch, but it's quite hard to see where people had gone. So so I guess at the beginning of the race, which side did you go for? Did you go on the Putney side or the Fulham side?
I went straight down the middle.
You went straight down the middle, toughed it out.
Until I saw my steerer,
And
probably by London.
Yeah.
He's saying I should go to the not series side, I don't know what side.
The Middlesex side, yeah.
Side. And so I went over there. I was right behind Gregor.
Yeah.
And then cut across to the series side.
Yeah.
And that got me right with two guys.
Yeah. And then you started picking them off, didn't you? You picked off the big guns.
Yeah, I had to hang behind them.
Yeah.
Around the Barnes Bridge because going down to the stream was too costly.
Yeah.
Then I saw Barnes Bridge. Everything got a bit messy, and I managed to see
Amazing stuff. And how does it feel to have taken down some big names like that?
Thank you.
Good.
Crushed by the winner, though. I never saw it.
No, you weren't too far away. You did really well. Well done, Ray.
Thank you.
Nathan, how was that? Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was good. So I tried to turn, so I thought I'd do a little sneaky one and go up the inside.
Really? Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to win. How much am I going to win by? But then I saw that other fella did the same thing.
Yeah.
Way faster than I am, so he started chunking through me.
So you went up the side at Putney side,
Went,
right along the line of the bones, right?
yeah, right beside.
And what was your strategy? So obviously then you came through Hammersmith along the bank, right? And then where did you go past the Aya?
I just stayed up the bank and I crossed fairly early. And the lads in the launch were saying there was some clashing in front of me, so I thought, oh, here, I might still do this. And then I saw my splits go sort of the wrong way. And then I nearly got overtaken by the marshal's launch and mauled into the bridge, so I had to go for a little power 20. Kind of loaded myself up with lactate and ruined the rest of my race plan, which was to come on strong at the end.
Well done. Great racing.
Yeah.
Graham, if you're all right to come over and give us a few words of wisdom, we'd love to hear how that was. Well done. Congratulations on winning the Wingfields.
Can you even hear me from over there?
If you shout nice and loudly, maybe.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, it's been a good race today. Very slow. I was just joking with Lola who's behind you, saying I think her race is quicker than.
I think they might beat you on time there, Graham. Might be one of our slowest Wingfields yet. Yeah. And talk to me, Graham, about what was it like rowing on the tideway? But I mean, it's your second time in the single on the tideway, is that or?
My third time actually rowing on the tideway in the single. My first time racing. So
Great. I mean, when you've got a good team, well, two of the best teams with like Josh and Henry, you can't really go far. Well, I hope you managed to hear some of what Graham had to say there. We'll obviously catch him when he comes back in as well. But that was a phenomenal race from Graham there. You know, like to keep his nerve there while quite a lot was going on. You know, lots of different tactics being thrown at you in terms of where to position yourself on the river. You know, it's a real unknown. You know, like we don't normally race upstream on the tideway like this. So knowing the best banks to work the slacks is a difficult one. So there was a lot of thinking there for the steerers, and having to be quite reactive there for the racers. But obviously he did a very solid job there to sort of come away with a win. And we're really sorry about losing the footage there through the middle of the race, because there was the data was throwing up some amazing insight as to sort of the strategies that were being played and how much the heart rate was indicating that people were overstretching themselves by trying to duck into the bank. And then also the GPS data was giving us some pretty crazy insight as to sort of where people had gone inside lines of boats or sort of tried to cut corners on the bends. So yeah, we're really sorry about that, but hopefully you've seen a glimpse of what can be done. But yeah, Gregor, can you give us a few words there on how you found the race? Interesting.
Going against the stream.
Yeah, we were just saying we don't often do that here on the tideway, do we? So it's a bit of a crazy one, isn't it?
Pretty unique, and figuring out when you were going to cross over to stay on the inside and stuff like that was it was different. It was,
looking back on your tactics, is there any decisions you regret or you were pleased you made? Or
I think where I ended up was reflective, so there wasn't like a sneaky tactic I was going to pull and come away with the win. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Happy with how you raced today, though. That's good.
Yeah, getting better.
Well done. Congratulations. Well done, Jack. How was that for you?
That's a long way.
Yeah.
That was my second time on the tideway and first time around. First time past St. Paul's today.
First time past St. Paul's. So you were sussing out the river as you were racing there?
Yeah.
Well done. You did a great job.
Thank you. Trying to find the fastest water is quite challenging, especially if you don't know the water. Definitely coming back next year for another go. Hopefully to do a bit more on the tideway next year before our race.
We would love to see you racing again. This is great. And I love you've got your Keating coat of arms there on the bows there. That's
and
brilliant.
Just underneath the phone is my name of my mum.
Oh, it's very fitting.
Unfortunately, she can't be here with us today. But she's there. She's around. She's back in Headley.
Very fun. Oh yeah. Oh, very good. And so well done today, Jack, and congratulations for racing. And we hope to see you again racing again.
Thank you.
Bring it on. Here we have our two Wingfield champions. Very good for Lola to be helping in the new men's captain, men's champion, even if he was a bit slower than her today. Graham, so now we can talk. So talk me through it. How was that? How does it feel to be the Wingfield champion 2021?
Yeah, really good. It's been on the bucket list for a long time, and yeah, it's nice to it was a good tight race for the first half for sure. You know, it wasn't a done deal by any stretch, and you know, Callum doing some unusual lines really kind of played with the mind a little bit. You're thinking, is he doing something like really right, or is he doing something really wrong? But you know, I trusted Josh and Henry, who are very experienced on the tideway, and you know, Henry's been really great in showing me around the last few days.
So that's Josh Butler, who's a coach at Westminster, and Henry Fieldman, Cox of the men's bronze medal-winning 8.
That's
isn't
right.
It?
So
they've got some good brains on board when it comes to tactics and steering, right?
Yeah. So you know, big shout out to them. Obviously, got to thank London Rowing Club for letting me have a shower after my pre-paddle. UL for giving me somewhere safe to store my boat for the last few days. And obviously the Wingfields for running a great event. And yeah, I mean, cheers to Thames Waterway for making it interesting and shutting the barrier. At least there's something historic about that we can you can remember.
Do you think one of your competitors might have put a phone call in to say we should shut the barrier today, lads? Do you think that might have happened? A bit of underhand tactics?
If they knew how much training I'd been doing, then maybe they might have thought that like just an extra 10 minutes on the race might uncover a few missed UT2 sessions where I've been snaking out on the bike instead. But in the end, I think my experience and kind of his training history did the job today, and I'm really happy.
So Wingfield Sculls, you said it yourself in the pre-race interview, a really prestigious event to win. You know, some big names on that trophy: Red Gray, Peter Haining, Alan Campbell, Mahe Dorisel. Obviously, a big win at the Diamonds this year at the Henley Royal Regatta. So amazing achievement there, and then another great accolade to put in the trophy cabinet. Sort of talk us through that. How does it feel? Is it nice to be filling up that trophy cabinet?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's been on the bucket list, and you know, the same with the Diamonds. You know, if you look through that list of scullers, it's incredible, and the same with the Wingfield. So to be, you know, to have my kind of name etched in that history is absolutely, it was really exciting, and it really makes all the hard work worth it when you can kind of create a little bit of a personal legacy like that, and hopefully, you know, I'm another name to be beaten now by everybody else, which is great.
Yeah, you're a big scout to try and take down, hey Graham. And talking of scouts to take down, we had a quite impressive race there from Razier there from London Rowing Club. You know, recently switched from triathlon into rowing. He did an impressive race there, sort of finishing in the sort of in the close finishes there with some of the Leander colleagues. Now, I guess just from your perspective, so obviously with the race being so unpredictable, was there some moments where you thought, like, I've made the wrong decision here, they're going to get me, or were you just quite confident that you could outpower them?
I mean, I got a really good start, which did take me by surprise. I was expecting everyone to be really hot to fight for that kind of fastest line and get the inside of the bend, but you know, I grabbed a small advantage out the blocks and kind of really just held that, to be honest, and didn't do more than I needed to. As I said, my fitness isn't at the peak of where I would like it to be. You know, I'm aiming to peak somewhere in the summer next year, but so I kind of just kept to learn on things. The rate was lower than I thought it was going to be, but I think that was reflective of the slow conditions. You know, had we been racing with the inward tide, probably would have put a few pips on that, but just kept it long, kept it on the legs, tried to keep the arms from blowing up.
And you went for the Fulham side. You sort of went down the middle, but then headed to the Fulham side and had to navigate the big barge around Fulham, around Craven Cottage, right? Is that?
Yeah, that was all part of the tactics, really. That was Josh's plan, to take me close to that barge and then head for a skyscraper kind of in the distance that would then take me over to the inside of the bend. But to do that, it was really important that I got a good start, and thankfully I did that in the tricky water outside of the Rowing Club.
And then obviously the strategy was then hugging the bank around Harrods. We lost a bit of the footage from Hammersmith Bridge round till just towards Barnes there. So talk me through the bits that we didn't quite see on the live footage. You sort of obviously just hugged the bank along the Surrey side essentially.
Yeah, so I went past Harrods, but I did take the middle arch of Hammersmith Bridge, which a lot of scullers actually took the inside there. So I did lose quite a big chunk of distance of my lead through there, but for me, I'm always err on the side of caution when it comes to, you know, playing by the rules, and I knew that it was the slower way, but I wanted to kind of avoid any risk of people challenging my win had I taken the inside line there. And then it was a case of just avoiding some of the branches and debris that was being washed down stream, and trusting Josh to keep me as tight into the bank as possible.
Gosh, and then so when did you choose to make the switch from the Surrey side to the Middlesex? So essentially off round by the A to make the crossing.
Again, I can't really take any credit for the decision making in that. It was all down to Josh. You know, he kept me in tight, and then waved me all of a sudden across the other side, and I just did what I was told, because you know it's hard work looking around exactly see where your bars are pointing. So just trusted in what Josh was waving.
So did you make the move sort of just after the steps, but you know where the boats are lined up, and then cut across?
I think actually, you know, if we'd been doing it officially, it was where the crossing point is pretty much. Yeah.
Well done, Graham. Yeah. And then obviously you felt like you had it in the bag from then onwards, right? And you were just keeping a lid on it, or?
Yeah, I tried a few little spurts. Like this is where my kind of lack of knowledge of the tideway comes in. You know, somebody shouted a K to go on the bank, and I thought, I'll take up a few pips. And I think maybe the telemetry will show that I took it up, but then it came back down again. And then when I remembered that there's a few pubs and things to go before you're actually at the finish line, took it up a little bit there, but yeah, it was. I was breathing pretty hard. I'm interested to see what the heart rate was doing there. It did feel tough.
Well, Graham, an amazing race there. Definitely a unique race for the Wingfields and a very worthy winner. So congratulations on winning this year's Wingfields, Graham.
Cheers, Adam. Thank you.
Take care.
If my legs work.
Of Graham Thomas, pictures there of Graham Thomas just getting his boat out. We do apologise for the break in signal. I think it was down to a broadband outage at our communications centre, and that was very frustrating because it was all going so well up to Hammersmith Bridge, wasn't it, Fergus?
Oh, I think it was a hugely exciting race, and I think the tone was set. I think as Callum was saying there, and I think as Graham was saying as well, just some of the decision making off the start was outstanding, and it was something that was reflected the entire way around the course. And I think Sam Meyer, who was out in one of the launches, and he was able to provide some stuff for people over on Instagram Live. So I think you would have seen there the decisions that Callum was taking to stick on Surrey Bend, and the other 5 scullers were over on Middlesex. I think it was a hugely exciting race, and I think hats off there, as Adam was saying, to Ray Zhu. I think a phenomenal race that he had for second place.
Yeah, to hold off Jack Keating from Leander Club, who says he's going to come back next year, the Irish sculler. So they'll love to see him again. But that's great. Sam Mayer, former, of course, Wingfield's champion himself, has got his mobile phone and put some footage on Instagram Live. There's Henry Fieldman, of course.
Hey Henry, how you doing? So Henry Fieldman here, Cox of the men's 8. So Graham was waxing lyrical about how much great steering advice you were providing him with there. So obviously watching some of the race, we could see that tactics were playing a lot into the choice of line here. It's difficult enough when you're trying to find the stream, let alone when you're trying to find how to get out of the stream. So could you just give us a little bit of insight as to sort of some of your decision making around the advice you were giving Graham on where to go?
Well, I feel I was steering the launch, so it was mainly Josh Butler, but I'll try and talk on his behalf. I think we noticed pretty quickly that, I think as everyone else did, that the stream, there was no stream in race direction. It was all against the stream. So right off the bat, we wanted to get into the side and try and hold that line, kind of fend off anyone that was trying anything funny. It was quite an interesting race. A lot of people trying different things. So just from a perspective of moving forward and seeing what the best thing to do is really interesting. I think Graham did a really good job, backed up by, or at least underpinned by a good start, let him take control. I was a little bit worried coming through Hammersmith. I was pretty sure the umpire had said something about we had to go through the centre arch and then no one else did apart from us. But, added to the excitement of the event, and really enjoyed it. Well done, Graham, and well done, Josh, for leading him on the steering.
We'll have to speak to Josh. Yeah, obviously he was the one waving around the pink, the oar that he was using to signal with, wasn't he? But obviously driving the launch, you could sort of sense of the conditions. The first half of the race was pretty lumpy, right? And then it wasn't. Sort of taught me through what it must have been like for the scullers in terms of the quality of the water, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was very lumpy, and just at the start when you're trying to kind of hold position, and I'm in the launch there, I was having to work pretty hard to just keep the launch pointing in the right direction because the stream's kind of catching the bow and moving me around all the time. So I imagine for the scullers it would have been really challenging. And then I'm holding the engine. Every now and then you can feel it kicking one way or the other, which I guess if you're in a little single scull, that must do an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, bad enough in a launch, let alone single. Right?
Yeah.
Good job it wasn't us, eh?
Absolutely.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for that, and well done today on helping Graham being steered to a win. It's brilliant. Thank you.
There's Adam Freeman-Pask, who is our on-the-spot interviewer. Just ready. I think that's...
I was trying to get away from this.
Here he is. Here's Josh. Here's the mastermind behind the steering tactics. Go on, give us a little bit of insight as to the advice you were giving Graham, or your decision making on where to go.
It was a weird one, obviously, because there was no tide, it was all the land water. So we just
decided to stay as close to the bank as possible and just cut off all the corners like a Formula 1 car. So
cut the corners, right? But
yeah.
So what did you think when you saw some of the scullers doing like a 90-degree turn and heading in for the foreshore at Putney and heading up the inside of the boats? Were you like, were you gutted when they were doing that, or were you thinking?
Well, not really, because then they had to go the long way around the bend. So we were at a bit of an advantage because we were on the second from the inside on the Fulham side. So we kind of just shot along there, came along outside Craven Cottage, and then went directly across the river, which obviously we're going to slow down. But
did you cross at where the big barges are outside?
Just straight after that.
So so I guess you were sort of out in the middle anyway, so it was a natural point to cross over.
Yeah, it would have taken. I mean, the Twickenham sculler who was on the outside of us darted across, and it obviously didn't do him.
He made an early move, didn't he? So he made some early gains from that, but then I guess
I thought he was doing really well, and then he kind of made some mistakes later on. But, yeah.
And then obviously having to go through the middle arch at Hammersmith, and then the decision to, I guess, when you're working slags, and obviously you've got to cross over again because you're following the Surrey bend, which is okay, but then as you go off the Ayotte, you've then got this Middlesex bend, haven't you? Which you then need to switch stations, don't you? So was there a decision on whether to go early or late on that?
The decision was to go early and direct, just because having been on the river, you see when kids are trying to race each other, the guys that go direct as opposed to slightly more of an angle always come off better. So.
That's it. No hanging around. Don't try and just row into the stream. Just go for it.
Straight across it like a Formula 1 car.
And sort of at the crossing point, just off the pier, basically, just direct across.
As soon as you can. As soon as you clear of the pier, and obviously it's safe, and then you just crack on.
We lost some of our live feed, but Sam kindly was streaming some on the Instagram account. But we kind of saw a great clip of you waving manically, being like, "Get across, Graham, get across." So were you trying to be as direct to him to just, as you say, get across, right?
Yeah, I guess we just made it really simple. If I wasn't panicking, I would be quite steady with my hand, and if I wanted him to move quickly, I'd be panicking.
Yeah.
So
more panic means get across quicker,
yeah,
right?
Just move quicker. Yeah.
Well basically. Done. Well, Josh, thanks so much, and that was a great summary of some of the tactics there, because it was a pretty phenomenal race for doing something different this time.
Yeah, really fun.
So
really
thank you very much, Josh.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
Great to get that heart of the action interview from our intrepid reporter and previous Wingfield winner, Adam Freeman-Pask. The presentation ceremony is fast approaching. That's going to be in about 6 or 7 minutes at 3 o'clock. And it was obviously very good if those pictures are on the Wingfield's Instagram account. Sam Mayer doing a fantastic job of covering for the pictures going off. We do apologise. It was a broadband outage that caused it. If you were enjoying the race, there is Owen Wadehall Craggs in the middle of the picture there, talking to the latest Wingfields champion, Graham Thomas.
Graham on his first 3 strokes, which he must have got a bloody good bend on his blades. He was absolutely anchored and could just great shove, and you could see what put him out in there. It wasn't quite as bumpy as the ladies' race, was it?
No, it definitely wasn't. It was white horses for that race. So yeah, I mean, I do say any conditions are my conditions, but yeah, I did appreciate the white horses taking a day off, and the start did surprise myself. I always say when that green light goes, I'm gone, but actually the flag caught me by surprise. I'm not even sure I was at front stops. I think I might have been at back stops, but I just I got them in and got going.
Before with all those served races over 2K, you're so fussy about the start position. You can do it from back stops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that really might put a few questions in the opposition's head if I'm starting a singles final at back stops. Yeah, so.
Bit of confidence. Yeah, I'll give you half a stroke. Yeah. You see how you get on. And how did you feel the rest of it develops? Because they came back on you a bit a couple of times.
They did, yeah. I mean, I like to try and keep it as within the rules as possible, and I took the middle of Hammersmith Bridge, which nobody else did, and I was ahead. I didn't want to risk getting into hot water with anybody else. Maybe if they came closer, they might challenge the fact.
You've had that double, hadn't you? You've had the double on your side, so that was a sensible choice because you didn't know if anyone else was coming.
Yeah.
So that was, I mean. Once you'd done that and you got round to Paul's corner, you had another good stretch up the Ayotte where you really laid it down
Yeah, got into a good rhythm around there, but I can't take any credit for steering. That was all thanks to Josh and Henry really putting me in the right place. Because as has been alluded to already earlier in the week, I'm not an experienced tideway sculler, but I've thoroughly enjoyed my day out today, and I'll definitely be back for sure.
Excellent. What we're really pleased with is there's a bit of synergy because Doug Melvin passed away a couple of months ago. He was my predecessor as secretary, and he was the last sculler out of the Northwest to win.
Okay, so
we appreciate the link back and the tribute to all the time he put in. So that's 1955. He would have won in 55 and 58. And he was secretary for 30 years. And he was Mr. Wingfield for a long time.
Well, maybe when I'm your age, Wade, I'll take up the
next year, isn't it? You just aged better.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. That was great. Well done.
So you're watching pictures from the Tideway Scullers Club at the end of the Wingfield Sculls race. The competitors going into the club now. I think the presentation will be upstairs in the club room. I'm guessing. I know they did it outside last year when it was at UL, where the sculler Matt Haywood and Matilda Hodgkins-Byrne took the title. We definitely have got a bit of the inside view of that race, haven't we, Fergus, from those post-race interviews?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just hearing, I guess, all six of them chatting away there, just the insight they were getting from it, that a lot of them, all of a sudden, the steering tactics played into it massively. And I think, as Josh was alluding to, and as Henry was alluding to, as soon as the barrier was shut, it cancels out quite a lot of the advantages that would previously would have been in place for a normal running of the Wingfields. But I think I was looking at some of the statistics that were coming out. This is only the 200th shutting of the Thames barrier that's ever been. So I think for it to happen today, of all days, I think it's quite remarkable, and certainly a Wingfields that will be, I think, remembered for years to come.
Yeah, I think, and because we had pictures off the start for that dramatic dive across the umpires launch that Callum Dixon took. I thought that was quite sensational, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think as we were saying when we were chatting away, I think just how close he was getting to the umpires launch, because I don't think the umpires launch was expecting it either, and all of a sudden you've got this sculler heading straight out in front of you that it looks like you're going to collide into. And I think fascinating that both he and Nathan took that line sort of the inside of where you'd normally have all the boats moored up down at Putney. So they were right tucked in, as we saw on all the GPS data, which was the opposite to the other four scullers. So there was no one in the middle. No one wanted that middle line. Everyone was tucked right into the side of the bank. And to be honest, it continued like that for the whole of the race. Everyone just trying to get that inside line and shave those extra few meters off their racing line.
Yeah, sometimes you do get races like the Sculler's Head race sort of against the stream, or the tide is quite slow to turn at the top. There was that race, wasn't there, when Calvin Tarzi, the St Paul's sculler, when he was a junior, finished with the fastest time because he was starting a bit down the list of starters. So he kind of got more of the stream, but did ever so well to win that race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that we haven't touched on is just how great it is to have the Wingfields back on its normal championship course. Obviously, last year we had the disruption, we had Hammersmith Bridge shut, and we had the altered course from Hammersmith just before St Paul's. The start line was round to, as you said, University of London was the finish line. But it's great to have it back in 2021 to its normal course.
It certainly is, and I much preferred it, I have to say. All those familiar landmarks compared to last year when we raced up to University of London. Wasn't quite sure where the finish line was, but no doubt this year that big post painted light blue and dark blue outside the Tideway Scullers Club. And we are waiting for the presentation to the 2 Wingfields champions, which is due to come at 3 o'clock. And we hope to bring you that from our camera inside the Tideway Scullers Club. Not sure whether it'll be Adam Freeman Pask on his mobile phone. Well, we do have a camera that was giving you pictures of the women's race and then the men's race. But that will be coming along very shortly. So it'd be nice to see 2 totally new Wingfield Sculls champions crowned. Lola Anderson and, of course, Graham Thomas.
And what's so unique about this race is that those 2 winners, Graham and Lola, straight away they're going to be giving back to the race itself, giving back to the Wingfields, and as former winners become part of the organising committee of the event and looking to see it grow in years to come. Obviously, last year we had the first running of the broadcast. Ludum have stepped in this year to provide broadcast their phenomenal GPS data. So it'll be fascinating to see how the event continues to grow next year and years to come.
Yeah, and I think they've got the decennial dinner, which had to be put off last year, happening. It's tonight, isn't it? And
yeah, I believe it is, which will be a fantastic event for everyone involved.
Yeah, well, all the old or the ex-Wingfield champions get together and celebrate. It's happening on a launch owned by Kenny Dwan, a previous Wingfield Sculls champion and 2 times Olympian in Mexico and Munich. And Kenny Dwan, fantastic single sculler himself, is providing the launch for the Wingfield Sculls to have their dinner tonight. And I believe that Graham Thomas and Lola Anderson will or are invited. Whether they're going to attend or not, I don't know. Perhaps Adam Freeman Pask might be able to ask. But I can see they're getting pictures from inside the Scullers Club room. And the presentation is fairly imminent.
Yeah, and I've alluded to it. It's a fantastic list of names that these scullers are going to be joining for previous winners on the women's side. Obviously, Anna Watkins, we've had Mel Wilson as well, a couple of the recent winners. And on the men's side, Steve Redgrave, Peter Haining, Wade Hall-Craggs himself, and Mahe Drysdale. So it really is an illustrious group of names that Graham and Lola are going to be on the board with. It's a fantastic achievement. Winners of the Wingfields and the champion of the Thames.
Yeah, and the names go back. I was looking earlier to both of the 1948 Olympic gold medal double scull, Bert Bushnell and Dickie Burnell. They were Wingfields champions. Jack Beresford, who I think is out there as having won the Wingfields the most time, the great Jack Beresford. So many Olympic medals that he won, and really peerless in terms of the Wingfield Sculls. And then a guy that I'm very interested in, Frederick Septimus Kelly, won in record time back in 1903. And then the great Guy Nichols, whose dad donated the Silver Goblets and Nichols Challenge Cup to Henley Regatta. He, of course, won it before the turn of the 20th century. So lots and lots of names of British rowers. Of course, one Kiwi, not without controversy, that race that Mahe Drysdale took the Wingfields, because he's a member of Tideway Scullers, the club that the presentation is going to happen in shortly. And I think 2 of the scullers, I know one of them was Mark Hunter, was it? I can't remember who the other sculler was that withdrew, but 2 of them withdrew in protest. But he has won it twice, Mahe Drysdale.
Yeah, that rule sort of allowing if you're a member of a British club or where you do the bulk of your training from is how we do get international competitors coming and competing year on year. But usually, as you'd expect, as we saw this year, it'd be a full British lineup of those who are born, raised, and train and race here in the UK. But every so often, we do get a few internationals coming over. Obviously, Ray Zhu, who we saw competing, he came over from Canada, and now he's based out of London Rowing Club. But it's always fantastic to get all sorts of competitors coming. And Ray, as you said, or was alluded to, a former triathlete as well. So it's all sorts of athletes competing over the years.
Yeah. There we see pictures of the Tideway Scullers club room, very familiar to anyone who knows it. Bill Barry just walking across the floor there, former Wingfield champion. I don't know whether he's going to be involved in any of the presentations. But,
yeah, I wonder if we'll be able to listen in and see what's going on.
That's this year. So when you win next time, you can get another bar. So it's BC and bar.
Thank you very much.
Well, you are.
Can you just stand in front of this way? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, Bill, do you want to invite Graham Thomas? Let's go.
I'm wearing a bow tie tonight. That's right. Bow tie, yeah.
Some people have got a bow tie like that. And there's your badge. Badge of honour. It's a tough race.
Do I get to wear that tonight?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Champions
why
wear the
not?
medals, yes.
Why not? Why
It's the only
not?
time you get to wear them.
Yeah. Well done to Graham.
so I think you can see there pictures of the two winners with Bill Barry, Lola Anderson, and Graham Thomas. And we will shortly be leaving this transmission. Hasn't been without its problems, just like the problems in the race when the barrier shut, and of course they had to race against the tide. But from myself and Fergus Mainland, who have been bringing you commentary for both the women's and men's races, it's been a great pleasure to have your company with us. I don't know if you'd like to say anything, Fergus.
Well, I think as you alluded to, it's been a fantastic running of the Wingfields, two absolutely deserving winners in the form of Lola Anderson and Graham Thomas. And I'm sure with some of these steering decisions, some of the lines that these athletes have taken, then I think it's going to be a Wingfields that will be remembered and talked about for years to come.
Absolutely. So from Fergus and myself, we'll leave you with these pictures from Madam Freeman Pass. It's goodbye and thank you. And we'll see you again in 2022 for the next running of the Wingfield Sculls. Bye-bye.